igniting the debate over war powers. Congress is revisiting the authorization for use of military force in the wake of the Niger attack that claimed the lives of 4 American soldiers. The resolution became law 1 week after the September 11th attacks to combat the Taliban and al-Qaeda in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. Critics, though, are saying that it gives presidents too much reach, too much power, and was misused to fight terrorism around the world. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, along with Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, both defended the law yesterday, and they're pushing for a more permanent solution.
The 2001 AUMF also authorizes the use of necessary and appropriate force to defend U.S., coalition, and partner forces engaged in the campaign to defeat ISIS in Iraq and Syria.
War is fundamentally unpredictable. We cannot put a firm timeline on conflict against an adaptive enemy who would hope that we haven't the will to fight as long as necessary. Instead, we must recognize that we are in an era of frequent skirmishing, and we are more likely to end this fight sooner if we don't tell our adversary the day we intend to stop fighting.
Joining me right now is Fox News military analyst General Jack Keane. General, good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, good morning, Maria.
Your thoughts on this debate?
Well, first of all, we should be having a debate. 16 years, the authorization that we're operating under was designed for Afghanistan and also for Iraq, 2001 and 2002, respectively. But the tension here, and why there's disagreement, is that the current authorization gives the president some wide latitude in terms of the use of all appropriate forces as necessary. And I think that that actually is good guidance. Others, though, want to restrict it in terms of the scope, in terms of numbers of forces, where they should operate geographically, and also put on a sunset clause or a time constraint. And that is the basic disagreement. Most people believe that's too limiting, and others think that the current authorization is not restrictive enough. And I don't think they're going to get agreement this time either, Maria.
Well, I mean, did the Niger attack tell us anything in this regard?
Well, I think we get things sometimes confused. Giving the president authorities to conduct operations against radical Islamist organizations that are spreading worldwide is one thing. And then you control those operations with oversight committees because you're funding the operations. You're also checking on the strategy to make sure that's right. Like John McCain has challenged the strategy in Afghanistan and the Middle East writ large as being the chairman of a major committee providing oversight to the military. And they also control the purse strings. So to try to do all of that and put that in an authorization for the use of force, I think is the wrong direction that some senators want to go. Niger did spark this debate. I totally agree with you because the committees were surprised by how extensive our operations were in that country. The way to make sure that we understand what's happening is through normal oversight of the United States military, not through an authorization document.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of sense, actually. And at this moment in time, though, the terrorism threat is as bad as it's ever been.
Yeah, absolutely. And to think we can control it by saying, well, we'll just authorize it for 5 years, or we want to restrict it to certain geographical areas, we've got to go where the enemy goes that's trying to threaten and kill the American people and those of our allies. That's the nature of this enemy. It doesn't organize as an army. It operates in the shadows. And we've got to be adaptive and flexible to deal with it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you, General, about Bowe Bergdahl and the trial. The Army sergeant took a stand at his sentencing hearing yesterday. He apologized to service members wounded while looking for him. They walked off post. He walked off post in Afghanistan, you know, in 2009, and then his comrades went looking. He said, quote, this: "It was never my intention for anyone to be hurt, and I never expected that to happen. I grieve for those who suffered and their families." Bergdahl is now facing up to life in prison after pleading guilty to desertion and misbehavior before the enemy. General Keane, what are your thoughts on this apology yesterday?
Well, I think that remorse is certainly appropriate, and I accepted it as being genuine, particularly after the dramatic testimony by soldiers who had serious injuries that are life injuries, who testified, and also a wife who came in and told everybody that she's no longer a wife, she's a caregiver because her husband is paralyzed and he has significant brain injuries. Certainly, that had some impact on Bergdahl, as it should. All that said, Bergdahl committed a serious offense when he deserted his post in the face of the enemy and wound up joining the enemy. He should receive a dishonorable discharge. I do believe he should receive some jail time, even though he was a prisoner for 5 years and tortured. The judge will take into consideration as mitigation that 5-year imprisonment and that torture and decide whether impose further confinement or release him. But the fact is, Bergdahl is being held accountable for that behavior, and that is justice in my judgment.
Right, and that's appropriate. Meanwhile, then Benghazi, American special forces have captured a militant wanted for his alleged role in the Benghazi attack back in 2012 that killed 4 Americans, including our ambassador, Chris Stevens, as you know. So Mustafa al-Imam will be brought back to the United States. He's facing charges in federal court. Your thoughts on this? A huge kudos to our special forces for capturing this guy.
Yeah, and the FBI are involved in this one. Intel agencies, the operators that went in there with the FBI, certainly we got a lot of evidence on this. It's really a great story. But I am still frustrated because Ansar al-Sharia, we knew they conducted the attack that night. We identified it as such. And while everybody talks about how the administration tried to mislead us as what the cause of that attack is, the other sin that the administration committed is we never went after Ansar al-Sharia. We should have targeted them. The president issue a finding to the military and to the CIA and say, destroy this organization, just like we did post 9/11 with al-Qaeda. We did not do that. We began criminal investigations, not a military operation to go after that whole organization. They hunkered down. They thought we were coming for them, and we never really did. This is the second one we've picked up. I'm delighted we did it. Trump said yes. Obama had said no to this particular operation a number of times. So we did the right thing here, and we'll bring this this horrible person who was responsible for the death of our people in Benghazi to justice, finally.
All right, we will leave it there. General, always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, good talking to you, Maria.
General Jack Keane joining us there.